Sure enough, he wrecked his McLaren F1. For me, one of the things that I'm grateful for when I left the Marine Corps is I didn't know what I was going to do. Most people don't. And the car business has been really good to me. I've done everything from service, sales, part of your job signs, pick up the phone. There's so many opportunities within the car business. I've seen detailers who started as detailers. Now they own their own car dealerships. It's a it's a great platform. You learn a lot about yourself. If you're a people person, it's a great place to meet people, learn about personalities, and provide a service. It's a real service that we can provide to people. It's real enjoyable. So I've been real grateful and real fortunate with Premier Financial Services. It's opened a door for me. I've been there 16 years. I'll tell anyone, if you're going to work for someone, make sure that there's integrity, make sure that there's transparency, make sure you enjoy what you do and believe in what you do, because that makes the biggest difference in the world. I grew up in the inner city, New York City, a place called Spanish Harlem. And there's actually a sub car culture. So growing up, my older cousins, they would have their souped up Camaros, their souped up Novas, even the occasional Corvette. So Saturday, Sunday, especially in the summertime, early morning, the first thing you would hear in your apartment is these burnouts all day long. I mean, people are out there and there's crowds, in the street, and everyone's hooting and hollering because you got these cars, just screeching down one-lane streets. So basically from 105th Street to between 2nd and 3rd all day long, you've had this cars going all the time. And it was really, really, really cool. So that was my first introduction to cars, and I really, really enjoyed that. From there, when I joined the Marine Corps, I was stationed in a place called, Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii. Because of the climate at the time, this is back in the 80s, I didn't remember seeing too many supercars or hypercars or exotic cars. But a buddy of mine, he got stationed overseas, and he asked me if I would look over his car for him. And it was a 69 MGB. And it was orange, the one with the chrome bumpers. Knowing what I know about cars now, it was the real deal. At the time, I didn't know that. All I knew, it had a 4-speed transmission, and I didn't know how to drive a stick. So he let me have this car, and for 6 months, I got to, go around the island driving this really, really cool MGB. That's actually on my bucket list to get one of these cars, because I really enjoy that vehicle. When I left the Marine Corps, I was married to an English woman. We went to the UK, and I needed a job, obviously. After trying, putting my resume out there, I finally got a call from a company called Daewoo. I think in the US you pronounce it Daewoo, but it was called Daewoo in the UK. And I started working for them, and I progressed through, and I finally got a position where I was the operations assessment manager. Having been a US Marine, it was real helpful because a lot of my training actually transferred over to what I was doing, because part of my job was to go unannounced to every dealership throughout the UK Northern Ireland and assess the soup to nuts. So front of the house, back of the house, the administrative side, how the cars were being presented, how the staff was actually presenting the product, the feature benefits of what Daewoo had to offer. And I really enjoyed that. So while I'm working there, the guy that I reported to, he actually got moved over. He took a job over at Rolls-Royce Bentley Motor Cars. This is before the split took place. So it's still one company based in a place called Crewe, England. You ever been there? You need to go there. It's interesting, But anyway, so I get a phone call, and it's like, hey, Juan, I got a job for you. I said, really? Doing what? He says, worldwide dealer training development. And I was like, what do I know about that? And his comment was, well, you train Marines, right? I said, yeah, how hard can it be? Being young and naive, I thought, makes sense to me, right? So I took the role. It was based in Crewe. I was already living in the UK, so I moved down to a place called Basford, just a cute, quaint little English town. Literally lived in a cottage where you had cows, in your back fence. It was just different from a kid from New York City. And when I first started there, I'm an American, right? And I'm a US Marine. So our mindset is different, We go to lunch. There was a pub right down the road from the factory. Now, so maybe that afternoon you were with engineering, because as part of what I did, I had to know the feature benefits so we could put together a training program to explain to the dealers. So you're sitting there and the engineers are taking you out driving these very expensive cars. Now it's lunchtime. You're at the pub and they're drinking pints and you're thinking, we're going back to work, And to them it was just, it's cool. Just a couple of pints, mate. Not going to hurt. I was like, I don't know about that. We got laws where we come from, but it was just different. It was interesting that their mindset, and how they saw these beautiful cars and watching them being built by hand back then was amazing. I remember there was the older lady, and her job was to take a fork to make the stitching for the steering wheel. So she would use the fork to line up the holes, and then she would hand stitch it. Yeah, that was pretty cool that they were still doing that. So while I was working for Rolls-Royce Bentley, part of what we used to do was, we would train the dealers, but also do customer events because we wanted to introduce the customers to the new products. So that's back when the Bentley Arnage and the Silver Seraph Rolls-Royce came out. The cars were interesting. There was a line that we used to use in customer services, which to this day I think was brilliant, because back then, those who were familiar with Rolls-Royce Bentley, they weren't the most reliable vehicles at the time because they were hand-built. I mean, they were beautiful automobiles, but reliability wasn't one of their strong points. So whenever a customer would call with a complaint, we would comment and we would say, "Sir, a Rolls-Royce doesn't break down. It simply failed to proceed." And that was kind of a funny way of, trying to minimize the issue with the car. So interesting. They say that the worst car to buy is one that was built on a Friday or a Monday. A Friday because everybody's cutting corners to get out of there on time, so they miss little things. A Monday, people tend to be hungover, so their workmanship is not as good. True story. So the best time to buy a car was one that was built Tuesday through Thursdays. And it could be a big difference, I mean, because if a car is being built by hand, the slightest change, mistake, error, a bolt being left off here or there, misplaced, it could cause major problems. It could cause a major fail to proceed, and we don't want major fail to proceeds, not at all. So I worked there for a while, and I got promoted, and I came to the West Coast, and part of my job was to manage the Western region for Rolls-Royce Bentley Motor Cars. And while I was working there, I was responsible for helping to find a new hire for one of the largest Rolls-Royce Bentley dealerships on the West Coast. As I crunched the numbers, a light bulb went off and I thought, I'm the guy. So I took over that role. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. To transition from manufacturer to dealership, it's a change. It's a whole different type of dynamics involved. I enjoyed it. In the Beverly Hills area, some of your clients are interesting to say the least. We used to have all sorts of actors, actresses, ball players that would come in. The interesting thing about that environment is oftentimes the sales staff gets all excited. And I try to remind them that they're all customers. And in my opinion, a VIP customer is the person who actually buys the vehicle. Not the one that we spend so many hours trying to show the car and fit their needs. If it's an actor, it's always going to be a bit of a headache. Some of them could be prima donnas, unfortunately, and it's difficult. They're real demanding of your time. And 99 out of 100, they don't ever purchase the vehicle. But we had some really good times. There was one time, it was after hours, I got a phone call from a well-known boxing promoter. He was looking for a Mendip Blue Aston Martin Vanquish. That's when the Vanquish first came out. Now, I knew I had the only one in the country. I had gotten a call from a Florida dealer inquiring about this vehicle for a particular boxer. So I put two and two together. And my job as a general manager of a car dealership is to hold gross, to make as much profit for the dealership. So I'm in the position of strength now, right? So I get this phone call from this person in Vegas asking if I have this vehicle. I said, absolutely do, sir. He's like, okay, I want to come out and see it. I said, no problem. These are ours. Here's where we're located. Come on out. Sure enough, 3 hours later, this person walks into my dealership and wants to negotiate the selling price of this vehicle. And I told him it's not negotiable. If you want it, this is the price. You're welcome to it. So he asked if later that evening, if I would meet him at a Beverly Hills hotel, that the end user would be there to do all the paperwork. It's no problem. So now it's about 10 o'clock and I'm sitting there and this well-known heavyweight champion walks in. It was different. I'll just say that. But, we do all the numbers. Everything works out. I get the check for the vehicle. No problem. Now we're going back to the dealership to deliver the car. And if you ever sold a car, it takes a little time. There's paperwork that you have to sign over. You got to get registration, do everything else. And this particular person started getting threatening. And I'm in my office and I got a phone. And I looked at him and I looked at me and I thought, I get one shot. And I literally thought I was going to grab the phone if I needed to hit him because he was getting, out of control. But fortunately, at the time, Bentley had come out with the streaming video of the new Bentley GT that was due to come out. And I sat him in front of this and I said, sir, would you like to see this video? And he literally sat there for quite a while watching it as it looped around. And long story short, it worked out really, really well. I shook his hand. He took off. I got a phone call about 2 weeks later asking if I knew where the car was. He had parked it somewhere and couldn't remember. And we didn't have, any sort of GPS system at the time. So I told him I couldn't help him. But that was an interesting a situation with that person. But we often had a lot of things like that with the celebrities. We had a customer who took delivery of, I believe it was a Corniche. The customer's all upset that the car has been in an accident, it was damaged. And, as a dealer, we're like, no way, we got this car from the manufacturer. The car's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. In our possession, we did the PPI, pre-delivery inspection. Everything's great. Nothing wrong with the car. Well, unbeknownst to us, at the port, the car had been in an accident. The factory simply repaired it and shipped it to us. So here you have someone taking, here as a dealer, I delivered a car that I'm expecting it to be perfect when actually it had been damaged and repaired and sold to us as a brand new car from the manufacturer. So that was a difficult conversation to have with the end user, to say the least. Currently I'm working now for an automotive leasing company, and it was interesting how I transitioned into that. And I enjoy what I do now because I'm still providing a service for our customers. When you have a customer who's achieved somewhere in life, either it's they've been working so long, they reward themselves or their wife, or someone wants to reward that person with a gift. It's nice to be able to help them with that transition and help them acquire the car of their dreams, and that works out really, really well. So one of the neat things about working with Premier Financial Services is I get to learn about and experience different brands. One of the cooler brands that I enjoy working with is McLaren. Being on the West Coast, probably the two biggest accounts for me on the West Coast, one in Beverly Hills, one in Newport Beach. And I've probably done more McLaren centers than anyone, certainly in the country, probably in the world. And at Premier Financial Services, I know that I myself have leased more of these cars than anybody else, which is really cool. And when I used to work for Rolls-Royce Bentley, my first introduction to McLaren was we used to host a lot of the dealers and the customers at the place called Rookery Hall, which was a hotel in Crewe near the factory. And on one particular day, this is back in 1999, Rowan Atkinson, better known as Mr. Bean, had actually been staying there, and he had the McLaren F1. And as y'all know, McLaren F1 is a very rare car, and it was really unique to ever see one, much less know of someone who owned one, because no one knew about these cars, Well, he had one, and most people know about the accident in 2011. Well, I'm here to tell you that there was an accident prior to that in 1999, where he was driving it and had an accident with a Rover. And it made big news because a lot of us that were actually at the factory, it was a talk of the Rolls-Royce. Oh my God, did you hear? He was we saw him at the hotel and he wrecked his car. Sure enough, he wrecked his McLaren F1, which the diminished value at the time was unbelievable. I believe at the time the claim for the vehicle was like 1.4 million pounds, which in 1999, that was a whole lot of cheddar. It probably was the biggest insurance claim ever at the time. I'm not an insurance expert, but all I know, when it made news, it was big news because he was infuriated by the fact that his insurance bill was that high. As we all know, he fixed it, repaired it, put the money into it, and now he sold it for over $12 million. And if you look at what he paid for it, at the time was close to 600,000 pounds. That is a huge return on investment. So I wish I was Mr. Bean, that's for sure. Having gone from Daewoo Cars, where you're doing literally we had one of the largest car dealerships in Northern England. You could be doing 200, 250 new and used cars a month. That's part of the goals. Now you go to a dealership, but back at the time when it was just the Bentley Arnage, the Continental R, the Silver Serif, the Corniche, there weren't many cars. If you did 10 cars, new and used cars in a month, that was huge, But the profitability also at the time was difficult. It was a time where there was transition uncertainty with both Rolls-Royce and Bentley. There was a buy-sell that was about to take place, which as employees for the factory and at the dealership level, we didn't know about, So it was kind of scary times. But it was interesting working there, selling a couple of cars a week. There's a different vibe. The customer, the interaction was fun. The manufacturer made it fun. Some of the events we got to go to were amazing. To go to a place like Pebble Beach, to be on the lawn and see some of those amazing cars on the planet just sitting there, to go on the Colorado Grand, to actually participate and see some of these amazing cars, Bugattis, Lamborghinis, Austin Healey's, and watching them actually being driven, it's amazing, and to meet the people and the motivation behind these vehicles, why they bought the car, what it means to them, it's brilliant. So that's a lot of fun.
This month's Car Stories are sponsored by The Ridge. The Ridge makes a line of wallets and bags that are designed to be minimalist and help us just take with us the things we actually need. So check out the link in the description below for a discount and buy one for yourself, or they make great Christmas presents. And be sure to let them know how thankful you are for their support of VINwiki.